Hey guys, welcome back. Origami here, bringing you something a little bit different, but still the same nonetheless. We are doing another live deck profile, but I'm doing this on Tabletop Simulator because, to be honest, it's a lot cheaper for me than printing the actual cards, and I don't have my deck on me, so that's the main reason. But today we're going to be covering Inteleon, so you guys know the drill. Before we end the video, drop a like, subscribe, share, all that good jazz. Remember, if you answer the comp question today and drop a like, you have a chance to win a booster box from our lovely sponsors at Guardian Gaming. Ba-boom. It's been a while since I used their logo. Lovely people. You can get their you can get anything off the website for 10% off using code ORBOM. You guys know the drill. So this is actually really exciting because, as a lot of you guys know, Inteleon's my baby, right? One of my favorite decks of all time. And this deck is really interesting because we get to use things like Spikemuth and Rose and a bunch of the brand new cards to kind of create like a new version of Inteleon that can still disrupt because it still has that one energy attack that disrupts. You can still play Marnies and Crushing Hammers, but also has the benefit of being able to attack for that 160 damage and 60 snipe because you have Rose that can easily accelerate an Inteleon out of nowhere. So before we end the video, you guys want to do all the things. We're just going to go ahead and get right into it. By the way, one other thing I want to mention, that if you are interested in playing some Darkness Ablaze decks and you're a subscriber of mine and you have a Discord and you have a decent mic, come join the Discord. I like to message every now and then like, hey, I want to do some testing. If you're free, come join me for some testing. And then I get to battle viewers, which is great. Of course, this is all on Tabletop Simulator. This only works if you have Tabletop Simulator. But yeah, if you guys are interested, come on down and join. But anyways, we got 4 Inteleon. I've been doing a lot of testing, and a lot of the way I've been building my VMAX decks are like pretty much the same. They have like a same core where we play a 4-4 line of Inteleon and Inteleon VMAX. So if you guys don't know what Inteleon does, I'll go ahead and go over it. But we are playing a 4-4 line. I'm no longer playing 3 of VMAXs unless like I have a ridiculous amount of search for them. Only because like as good as Inteleon is, and Inteleon is still a good card, right? It can still do 40 damage snipe, which actually does matter a lot of the time for some particular damage for putting things in range of 2-hit kills and stuff like that. So 40 damage snipe, not too bad. But like 200 HP, like with the way with Eternus is right now, that like if your Pokemon can be O-code, you don't want it on the board, right? Especially when it's giving up 2 prizes. So I wanted to evolve this Inteleon quickly, which is why I'm playing the 4 VMAX. Now the 4 VMAX, 320 HP, weak to lightning, which is really nice because like Vikavolt is looking like a tier 2, maybe a tier 1.5. There's not many other lightning decks out there. Like, sure, you can see the Fringe Boltund, but other than that, you're not going to be seeing a lot of lightning decks. And the ones that you will see don't matter too much. And so, which is good because that means this thing's playable. Because 60 damage and then putting the energy back into the hand is really disruptive for a lot of decks, especially if you get to be the first one to attack. Like, think about it like Eternus, right? Like, if Eternus doesn't accelerate energies, then you're in a good position. Because then there's a 2 energy, it's a 2 energy like attacking deck, so it's pretty convenient for you. Of course, you're a water type. I personally think Center Scorch is probably BDIF, so being a water type is beneficial as well. Because you have the attack max bullet down here, which does 160 and 60 to one of your opponent's Pokemon. This is really nice numbers because 60 with like any little bit of damage will be enough to knock out things like Jirachis, Zigzagoons, and of course that 60 snipe can, like if you do a 60 snipe 3 times on a Crobat, you knock it out too. Most people are not putting Crobats back into their hands, so Crobats are like easy targets as long as you're attacking a few times with Inteleon as well. So the numbers work out really nicely for Inteleon, and it's a 3 energy attack, which is what we have Rose for. 160 is good. It can O-code the Denes and 2-hit kill almost every VMAX except for Eternus, which is where the 40 damage snipe or the max bullet snipe or even the Spikemuth damage comes into play. So we can manipulate damages to where we can take, like if you saw the last game that we posted on the channel, Eternus versus Inteleon, you saw that I had a game where I took all 6 prizes at once because we were able to manipulate damage with Spikemuth and max bullet. So that's pretty cool. Because we're playing Rose, which empties your hand, we're going to go ahead and play a 3-3 of Silvally. I'm playing a high count because you do want to find your Silvally quickly. Honestly, you can play around with a 4-2 line or a 4-3 line. Like, there's nothing wrong with playing more type null because you do want to find them. But of course, type null, I think this is the only type null format. There might be one more, but I don't think the type null actually matters which one you use. But we have Silvally here, which does let you disc reload, which is you may draw until you have 5 cards in your hand. This pairs really nice with Rose because Rose empties your hand, and then you just draw 5 cards with Silvally. I like this more than Rose Tower, a lot more than Rose Tower. Drawing 3 is kind of weak. I'm not playing Jirachi in this build or anything like that, so being able to empty your hand and draw 5 is really nice. You got Brave Buddies. It's an attack, like I do find myself attaching to Silvally sometimes in case I expect an Inteleon to go down. I can attack with a 1 prize attacker. It does 120 if you use a supporter that turn, so it's definitely not bad. Silver Knight can knock out a Ultra Beast. I don't think that's relevant anymore, but it exists. But more importantly, its ability is what matters. So yeah, being able to draw 5. And of course for support Pokemon, I am playing one Oranguru. Oranguru is really nice combined with Rose because then you can put whatever card you want to keep into your hand on top of your deck and then play Rose, discarding the cards in your hand. Then you can draw it right back with Silvally. So I do think Oranguru is super important in this build, specifically because I don't want to lose my Great Catcher or my Boss's Orders. Of course those are limited, so don't want to lose them at all. And of course 2 Dedennes as well. And that's it for the Pokemon line. Fairly simple, fairly consistent, no special text or anything like that. If you are looking for special text, especially to deal with things like Decidueye, you could squeeze in some non-GX, non-V attackers. There's not really many that come to mind for water types. One thing I was experimenting with, but like I haven't decided to put it in for sure yet, is Cryogonal, because Cryogonal can just like chip away. You can disrupt them a bit, and then they can chip them away with Cryogonal, and then they can't use things like Rare Candy. So that's been nice. So that's an option, but if you guys can think of any other like good non-GX attacking water options that are like low energy cost, of course, because that's the biggest problem, right? You don't want to have something that you have to dedicate multiple turns to attaching to, even though you can, because once again, Inteleon being able to use Hydro Snipe is really, really good versus things like Decidueye, because sure, you can't damage them, but if you continuously put the energy in their hand, Decidueye has no way to accelerate energy. Except for like they're playing ADP, which is like what I'm experimenting with right now. But even then, you just OHKO the ADP. Then after that, you start Hydro Sniping and using Crushing Hammers and stuff like that. So you have ways to work around Decidueye for sure. As far as the items go, of course, we are playing 4 Quick Ball. Nothing special there. Get our basics. 4 Pokecom. This is like the standard. This is like my these are the guaranteed. What was that? 16 cards that go into every VMAX deck. You want the 4/4 line and then the 4 Quick Ball, 4 Pokecom, because it's so important to find your VMAXs, otherwise you're kind of stuck doing nothing. So the 4/4 line of the VMAX, we are playing 4 Crushing Hammers because to be honest, I don't know if I really need the Crushing Hammers in the deck, but they've been really nice just because like Inteleon is a much more offensive threat than I give it credit for. Crushing Hammers are nice though because they do help disrupt, and sometimes you need those turns of disruption because that's what really makes this deck shine. And 3 switches. You can play 4 switches. I'm playing 3 right now because I had to make space for a Pokemon. I really wanted to have a high number of Silvallies, Type Nulls, and Inteleon, stuff like that. I really wanted to have a high number of these so that I'd be able to set up pretty consistently every game, which is why I'm only playing 3 switches. I was playing 4 switches before. The 4 switches are nice though because you do end up switching a lot between your Pokemon just to make sure that like you can take your damage Inteleon, move it to the bench, and attack with a fresh Inteleon, which is like, it's nice. If you can manually retreat, it also works because then you can just rose the energies that you retreated with Inteleon, since Inteleon does have a 2 retreat cost, into the new Inteleon, and that happens a lot too. And I am playing 2 Capacious Buckets to go with my energies. I mean, it lets you search 2 energies. Not to mention, if you're playing it with Research, then you can immediately dump 2 energies in the discard pile, or with the Dedenne, of course, and then that immediately activates Rose. So that's why I like Capacious Bucket in this deck. And then 1 Great Catcher. As far as Stadium goes, I am playing 4 Spike Moves. Now I'm playing 4. You don't have to play 4, but I've been really liking 4 because I really want to find it. So Spike Move, what it does is that when a player's Pokemon is moved from the active spot to the bench during their turn, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. So it's like, it's not as broken as I originally thought, but I still ended up liking it a lot because it punishes players that use Jirachi, it punishes players that switch around a lot to reset attacks like Salamence and stuff like that, or So like, and Jirachi's still like a decent engine, right? I mean, there's still Scoop Up Net and switches in the format. And that's another card you can easily squeeze into this deck is a Mr. Mime. You can tell that I'm not playing a lot of Pokemon because your bench actually gets pretty full. Like generally you want to have a Type Null and a Silvally on the bench because you can evolve into another Silvally if you need to. Then you're going to want 2 Inteleons at least. And then you usually have a Ranguru, which means you only have like bench space for 1 or 2 more Pokemon, which is why I'm not playing the Mr. Mime. But like, I think if I can figure out what to cut, I'm probably going to squeeze a Mr. Mime in here because Mr. Mime combined with Spike Move sounds really strong. They can't use Scoop Up Net. They have to use switches, and if they use switches, they take damage. And if the Jirachi gets damaged, then you can play Inteleon. But the same reason why I'm not playing Zigzagoon in this deck is the same reason why I'm not playing Mr. Mime, right? My bench gets way too full for Zigzagoon, but Zigzagoon is like, it's like a 1-turn proc, which is important, but I also feel like having Mr. Mime is a little bit better because it's like a consistent ability throughout the game that they have to knock out, which means they're not damaging an Inteleon. So that's pretty good. As far as supporters go, whoops. This is going to be a little bit weird, but I was having some space issues, and because I've been able to set up my Silvally quite a bit, I actually only am playing 3 research. You can easily play 4, but yeah, because I'm playing 4 Marnies too, which is this is the part that's weird, right? I really like Marnie as a disruption card a lot, which is why I'm playing 4 of them. They're just so good. And also, as you can tell, I'm still playing a high supporter count, and that's because you don't use Silvally throughout the game as a way to draw cards, right? You use Silvally as a way to draw cards after you play Rose. Otherwise, Silvally is like going to be drawing. Silvally is not usually going to draw you a bunch of cards, right? It's not like your engine of the game. It's just like it's like your engine for Rose. So I know some people want to stray away from playing too many supporters so you can draw as many cards as you can off Silvally, but I disagree with that because like playing a research is much better than drawing off Silvally. Playing a Marnie in a lot of situations is much better than drawing off Silvally because you draw the 5 cards, you can use a few cards and then draw off Silvally, which is drawing you even more cards. So, and then you're disrupting your opponent at the same time, right? So I do, even though research is really good early game, I just find that between like playing these, like 4, 8, 12, 16, 17 Pokemon and 4 comms, 4 quick balls, I'm able to use the Dene enough to find all my pieces and my supporters and stuff like that, which is why I'm only playing a 3-4 line. Although, once again, you can easily switch this around to a 4-3 line if you prefer to find research more often than Marnie. Marnie is just like my supporter I love using in this deck. And of course, we are playing 4 rows. You kind of have to max out on these cards because you're probably going to be discarding them throughout the game, and also you want to be able to find them. You just got to find them in the right turn. So sure, like you're not going to be using this card all the time, but it's really important to find this card when you need to. So 4 rows, it's just like Welder, right? Obviously Welder draws you cards, so it's even more beneficial than Rose does, but like you need to find Rose to start attacking with Inteleon. And I'm already playing 1 Great Catcher, so I'm only going to be playing, what the heck? That's weird. I'm only playing 2 Boss's Orders. I was playing 3, but now I'm down to 2. As far as this go, I'm only playing 8 Water Energies, 8, and then I have 2 Capacious Buckets, so it's like I'm playing 10 energies. I feel like that's enough to find energies, no problem. If you want, you can easily add another energies. I was playing 9 before I made a few cuts, and 9 was working out well. 8 seems to do the job as well. So, but this is the deck list, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. We can actually take a look at a few of my other decks just to like kind of have an idea of, oops. Oh, my bad. Of like what to like how you can handle other decks, right? My biggest problem with Inteleon is the fact that I'm still a V deck, right? I'm a V max deck, so it's a little bit problematic versus things like Zacian. But Zacian is almost always playing other Pokemon that we can attack. So between let me see if I can spin this around. What is it? This one? Yeah. Between getting rid of their energies, putting it back to their hand more specifically, which means their patches don't work, and attacking the other Pokemon around them, and then just setting up an Inteleon to be able to knock out the Zacians, because Inteleon has an attack that does 130, and then, let me double check just in case, I don't actually remember. Yeah, it has an attack that does 130 and reveals their hand, which is actually pretty relevant. And then of course Silvally can hit 120 for 2 energies. So you have some attackers that you can mess around with, but it is something you have to play around, which is always problematic. Of course, Eternus, like we mentioned earlier, we had the gameplay where we showed off the Eternus versus Inteleon, and you know, it's just a game of setup, right? Whichever deck can set up better, or not even better, but like more consistently, will win the game. Eternus being having an attack that can accelerate to its bench does make energy disruption more annoying, which is why the crushing hammers are pretty useful. But if I can find my spike booth and they're switching around, it becomes more detrimental to them. Of course, they have Zigzagoons and Crobats that I can easily hit. So usually the game is just like knock out one of those guys and what's it called, knock out one of those guys and then snipe one of the VMAXs, I should mention, and then snipe around to knock out some other stuff. And you can even, there's so many games where I just force up a Zigzagoon, put 60 damage on it, right? And then when it switches, it knocks itself out, which gives me a prize, and then that's really relevant as well. So yeah, it's pretty good stuff. What else do I have? Of course, you are a water deck, so you have the inherent advantage versus Centiskorch. Centiskorch, the benefit between Centiskorch versus Eternus is that Centiskorch usually isn't OHKOing a Inteleon turn 2. I mean, like on their I guess they kind of, if they go first and they double welder, I guess they can. Because like Centiskorch does like what? 40, 4, 8, 12, 16. Is it 40 plus? I don't remember. Yeah, it's 40 plus 4, 8, 12, 60. So they need 4 energies to. So if they double welder or welder double attachment, they can start OHKOing Inteleon. But by that time, we should be a VMAX because they go first, we go Inteleon, they go again. They have to. Okay, so that's not necessarily true. But once again, we OHKO them unless they have like the heat energies or stuff like that, which in that case, we just need Spike Muth or like a little bit of sniping damage. So we do too much damage to this deck to be too much of a threat. And of course, usually they need a lot more energies than they can have the time to accelerate to OHKO VMAXs and stuff like that. Things that like Zacian and Lucario Melmetal ADP, stuff like that. If they're not playing a high count of Zamazenta, we can usually play around it. But if they are playing a lot of Zamazenta, that's whenever things are kind of problematic. We have to attack around it and start setting up things like the Sylvally. Luckily, at that point, they do not have enough. Their damage output isn't enough to OHKO us in return, so it becomes a game of the 2-hit KOs, and we should be setting up a VMAX in the back just in case they start attacking us with Zacians. And let me double check the damage output of a Zacian, of a Zamazenta. Should be in here somewhere. This is not a finished deck by any means, guys, by the way. Where is the Zamazenta? It's a gold card, that's right, I forgot. Ugly gold cards. Let's take it. There's 130, discards a special energy. We're not playing a special energy. 130 is not enough. Even with an ADP boost, it's only like 160. 160 is not enough. 160 is just enough to 2-hit KO a Inteleon VMAX. Otherwise, they're 3-hit KOing us, so we can disrupt them in the meantime, snipe around a Zacian as well with the 160 plus 60 damage snipe to something else. So we have a lot of options versus that deck, and they usually cannot OHKO any of our dudes. Most of the time, they have to 2-hit KO. So we can play around it. It's just a matter of how both players draw. Do they have to bench other stuff? Things like that. Of course, we do 2-hit KO Salamence. Salamence does have a lot of spread and can hit those big numbers, but they usually can't OHKO us from like nothing, and then we can put the energies back into their hand, which is good for Salamence because they're bad for Salamence. Unless they're playing a welder version, Salamence does need those 2 attachments. We already talked about Decidueye. Vikavolt is Vikavolt. Of course, those low HP decks like Spiritomb and Blacephalon we can deal with quite nicely because we are both for water. We're water for Spirit, for what's it called, Blacephalon, which is good in its own right, and so we can OHKO them with a 1 energy attack. And with Spiritomb, any spread damage is good damage versus Spiritomb. And then as much as they like Spike Muth, it also hurts them a lot of the time, especially if we put 60 damage on them. If they have those giant capes on and stuff like that, it could be really problematic. They can't switch too much. So that's gonna be the deck profile, guys. I'm still looking for suggestions if you guys can think of any non-GX attackers or non-VMAX attackers that could be pretty good in a deck like this. Obviously, our energy acceleration comes from Rose, so we have no way to accelerate energies onto these non-VMAX, non-VMAX Pokemon. That is what I'm trying to say. We could easily throw in things like Turbo Patch. We just have to change up the list a little bit, which could be another way to accelerate energies. In fact, if we need to, and we needed some non-attackers, we can put in some different Pokemon attackers and take out the Crushing Hammers altogether and put in Turbo Patches as another way to accelerate energies for those other attackers. So we have some versatility in this list if it comes down to it. I don't think that's necessary, but I would need to test out versus some decks before I really decide that. So that's gonna be the deck profile, guys. Long one. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Let me know what you guys think of the Tabletop Simulator shebang, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.